If you go to work for a company, that puts the golden handcuffs on you. You'll buy a house, you'll buy a nice car, now you'll have bills and debt. It gets harder and harder and harder to walk away. If you're gonna start a business and fail, now is the time to do it. Business leaders want to blame it on the employees. It's the system's fault. You've got to look at the systems that you have put in place to make them successful. When you're starting out in business, there's this thing called equity. I'm not talking about ownership in a business. I'm talking about your reputation, customer base, your own skills. If you sow enough, eventually you'll harvest.
Today I'm interviewing one of my good friends. He's like a second father to me, David Frey. And this is the guy who you'll hear me call him D-Fry in a lot of my videos and content. And he's the one who actually mentored me, got me into business. And today we're just going to do kind of a little bit of an interview. He's also going to probably tell you some funny stories because we were together, what were we, like a year and a half?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a year and a half. Yeah. He's the catalyst for a lot of the success I've had. So D, how about you start off telling everyone a little bit about like you, and then maybe get into like how it started. Start working together.
Yeah, well, I've known Tanner since he was a young kid. He was the captain of the football team. He was Mr. Straight A student. I was his youth leader at church. Yeah. And something kind of happened in his personal life between him and his parents and his ex-girlfriend at the time. He's told you about it. If you go through some of his things, there was kind of a little fallout there for a little bit. And anyways, Tanner went on to play football at different colleges. And, you know, they always say that some of the best athletes in the world, you never even get to know who they are because they got hurt when they were young. And so they never emerged into college or anything. And Tanner was one of those kids. He was a super athlete, star football player for a big Texas 5A school here, which is... you know, football in Texas, Friday Night Lights, it's huge. And so he went to BYU, he went to, was it Northern Arizona?
Arizona Western, yeah.
Arizona Western. But it's because he kept getting all these shoulder injuries. How many, have you had surgery?
I had five, so 2 on one, 3 on the other. And then every time I would I'd do 6 months and then I'd tear it again. And then I'd do 6 months and I would tear it again.
Right, and then when he wasn't getting a surgery on it, he was getting... What are those big shots? What are they?
Stingers? Or
the big needles, man. Where you?
I don't know.
I forget. Anyways, it's what I get. That's one that I got in my back when I had a hernia. But anyways, so finally he came back to Friendswood to kind of regroup. Friendswood is our little hometown here in Texas. And I said, hey man, let's go to lunch. And so we went to lunch at a little sandwich place, not far from here. I looked at Tanner. I'm like, the guy looks like Apollos, the god Apollo. I mean, he's beautiful looking man. He's got a body, super, super, super smart. I don't know if you guys know just how smart Tanner is. At that time, there was a lot of fitness guys online, and I knew they were making some money, right? At that time, a lot of them were publishing information products. Some were doing some coaching. But I knew he could make a lot of money. I knew he was smart enough to do it. I'm always a big proponent of being an entrepreneur and working for yourself instead of working for the man. And, I told him, dude, you should go into business for yourself. I'll make you a deal. Come over to my office and, I'll mentor you in my office. You can come in and I'll work with you and blah, 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 blah. And so he did. I told him, if you go to work for a company, you'll probably, especially petroleum engineering, you'll come out starting over probably 100,000. And that puts the golden handcuffs on you because now you're making a lot of money, too much money to just walk away from. You'll buy a house, you'll buy a nice car. Now you'll have bills and debt. Now you'll need the money that you're making to pay off these bills. Then you'll get married, start having kids. Now you got more responsibilities and it gets harder and harder and harder to walk away. I'm like, right now, you're single, you're living in your parents' house. If you're going to start a business and fail, now is the time to do it, man. College will always be there. And so I said, hey, if you go to college, if you go into the business world, you will never, ever start your own business.
It sounded stupid at the time, but now it's the smartest thing I ever heard. Because I was like, that makes no sense. Like, I'll go and I'll save some money up, and then that was the best advice I ever got.
So he was coming into my office, and it's toward the end of the summer when the school year starts. Oh, yeah. And Texas A&M actually called him. And we had kind of prepped a little bit for the call, but anyways, he's sitting there in his seat. He gets the phone call. He's talking to them, and they're asking them, "Are you coming into the program, next month?" And he said, instead of answering, he says, "Can you hold just for a moment?" And he put his phone on hold, and I was in the office with him, and he says, "This is A&M. They want to know if I want to go into the petroleum engineer, if I'm planning to go in." And I told him, "Tanner, say no. Don't do it. Turn it down.
I was so scared.
All that stuff will always be there."
Because everyone else told me not to except you. He was the only one who told me to do it. My parents, my girlfriend at the time lived across the street. Her mom was like, "Don't do it. That's so stupid." He's like, "No, bro, they're stupid." He's like, "Do it." I remember.
Yeah. And so it's one of those like defining moments that people have in their lives where your life either goes this way or goes that way.
Yeah.
But this was like a 1 minute phone call. You either go this way or that way. And it was a big decision. Anyways, I'm like, "Tanner, just tell him no." And so he told him no, and he got out the phone, and he looked at me and like, "Dude, do you know what I just did?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know what you just did." It was a big defining moment. He burnt his bridge.
Yeah.
And so now he had nowhere to go but that way.
Well, and to get into that program, the irony is I was doing all these extra things to ensure I got in because it's very competitive. So I had done it where I had a guaranteed spot and I had to do all these things. And because I transferred, it was just a bunch of stuff. And so the fact that I turned it down after all that, it was like I lost my guarantee. And like if I tried to go back, they probably would have said no.
So like Tanner talks a lot about taking a risk. You have to take a risk in order to get the reward, in order to get what you want in your entrepreneurial life. And he walks the talk. I'll tell you another story in just a moment, but he started writing a book. I said, "Write a book about, how you get jacked." And we started creating a brand for him and stuff like that. But here's some of the side stories. He was so broke. I've got a lot of he was so broke stories with Tanner. He was so broke that he started doing modeling. He wanted to do some modeling, but one thing he didn't realize is that at his size, in men's modelings, what we discovered is that you can have a nice, slim, muscular figure, and those are kind of runway models. Those are the ones that get called by J.C. Penney's and stuff like that. The ones that are a lot bulkier and a lot more muscular, that's where all the gay magazines fall. And so just about every modeling gig he had was for like a gay magazine or a gay website or something like that. And so, when he would model, he was almost
like so it'd either be implied nudes or it would be close to it. So implied nudes would be if like I have my hands over my junk or like you can see the side of my butt but you don't see the crack. And he told me, it was funny. I remember he's like, "Hey, look, dude," he's like, "This modeling's like the gateway of the porn industry. This is like the weed to the cocaine." And I was like, well, that's what I did at the time, but I actually met some good friends through it, but he was right. I mean, a lot of it can get towards that.
It's a
phase.
seedy.
Yeah.
It's kind of a seedy.
Yeah, because, well, especially, like, I actually met a lot of good friends that are, like, gay photographers and stuff like that. I actually think some good came from it because I had, like, growing up, I just had maybe more of a negative outlook towards, like, the gay community, and then I met a lot of, like, cool gay people. But in terms of what he was saying, it was like, yeah, it's like, you're not going down this probably a great path, and it leads to make more money. You either have to do more OnlyFans type stuff, we'll just say that, or you kind of have to get out. And that's kind of where it led me.
There is a guy on YouTube that is very muscular, a very handsome guy, and he does all this weird stuff to, what's his name?
Who is it?
The dark-haired dude who, opens up his shirt, he talks to girls, and then...
Connor Murphy. He's not really around anymore, but Connor Murphy, when he was doing all the fitness stuff, yeah.
So Connor Murphy would, like, go to a very populated downtown area, and like he would do. He would get a woman in his arm and start doing all
like
kinds of
6th
weird
Street
stuff.
or like Austin. Yeah, he just
So Tanner saw that. He said, I could do that. Look at all the views he's getting. He's like, 1 million subscribers. He's getting all these views. I'm like, that dude's making a ton of money. Tanner's like, yeah, I'm going to do that. I can do that. And he was, he was going to go down the Connor Murphy path.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I guess that's one step better than what he was doing. Because with the gay modeling, I was looking at, one day I said, Tanner, come on over here. This is from a different computer. I'm going to type in Tanner Chidester into Google, and we're going to click on images. And I'm going to show you what's happening. So we did that. And I mean, there was like 50 photos of Tanner.
Like Speedos not much.
And is in this Speedo underwear that's so thin.
There wasn't much to see, by the way. There's not much to see.
It was, and I'm like, Tanner, one day you're going to meet a really nice girl and you're going to be talking about marriage, or you're really going to like her. And of course, she's going to tell her parents about you, and they're going to go on Google and Google it, and they're going to click images, and they're going to see that.
There was a girl when I was still modeling. She actually thought we set up a date, and then she like started ghosting me, and I was like, yo, what the F? Like, are we going on the date? And she's like, I don't date porn stars. And I was like, whoa. I was like, whoa. I was like, I'm not into porn. I'm into this modeling. She's like, well, it looks like you are. She's kind of a really conservative girl. So, no, I mean, you were right. It was like, they would tell their moms, then their moms would Google me, and they're like,
You dated Miss Utah.
Yeah, for a little bit.
Remember that?
Yeah, I did.
Anyways, I kept telling him, man, you gotta get away from that. Get away from it. He was also, to make a buck, because he was so poor, doing weird Zoom shows. Okay.
But most of them were the foot shows.
Okay, yeah. He didn't get nude, all right?
Yeah, but I put my foot usually, so I'd sit like this, and then they'd see my feet, and then usually I could see what they were typing, and they'd be like, curl your toes. So I'd start curling them. They'd be like, move your foot, and I'd start moving it like this. But I wouldn't be on the screen, but I'd be kind of like this, and my foot would be like out here.
And there was another one where all they wanted to see was abs. I think the rule.
Oh yeah, it was like,
I think your rule was
no face.
Never show the face with the body
joke.
at the same time.
But it was also like, I was just like, I'm not gonna do nude. So like sometimes it would be they want to see my body, so like I cut my head out. But I didn't care that much about that because if I had shorts on. But it's crazy how many people want to see feet. The other thing I don't get with feet, how do you know I have nice feet? You've never seen them. But they assume, I think, if you're jacked or muscular, that you got nice feet. Like, I don't even know if my feet are nice. They don't look that good to me. I don't know.
Other guys wanted flexing. Other guys wanted pieces of your clothing on a subscription basis.
I did do that. That's the easiest money.
Okay, that's so gross, dude. Okay.
Dude, but for content,
I'm not going to tell you what he did because I'm really not really sure. But one morning, Tanner came in. And he was very depressed.
Yeah.
Super depressed. More depressed than I've ever seen him.
I remember that.
And he thought his world had just caved in on him. I don't know what he did to make a little bit of money, but whatever he did, he saw it online, and he just got so depressed. And he says, oh, my career is over. My whole career online is over. Everything is gone. I can't believe it. And anyways, he was very, very depressed about that. I'm like, dude, you're going to get through this. You'll be okay. But I think that kind of reached a point where he's like,
I was done. Man,
I've got to stop doing this. And I'm glad, everyone goes through these immature cycles where we learn stuff. Yeah. Everyone. All of us, you have gone through them, and
no matter what the adult who's smarter says, that's the big thing,
right?
And it just keeps happening over and over again. Unfortunately, it doesn't really end.
He became kind of a little famous with my crowd because, Tanner always wanted to do a competition.
Yeah.
When I say competition, he always wanted to do a fitness competition, and so. Because he was modeling and he was always wanting to do these fitness competitions, he was always trying to stay very, very lean. And, Tanner is a really big guy and he can eat lots of food. I used to take him over. He was so broke. I used to take him over this all-you-can-eat salad bar.
Was it like enchilada or was like, I forget what it was, yeah.
And I kid you not, he had like 6 plates all stacked where he'd eaten full salad. I couldn't even believe that much food went into a person. So anyways, when he was like getting prepped for a competition or getting prepped for a photo shoot, he would go on this particular diet. And man, this diet was insane. It was truly insane. I don't know if I should say everything that he did, but one thing I always remember, he brought in these little tuna cans. The little tuna cans. And I'm like, dude, is that your breakfast? He says, that is my meal for the day. I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah, because I was trying to cut.
Yeah, and he would eat these just little tuna cans, and that was pretty much it. And I think you were maybe taking something that made your body rev up a lot.
Yeah.
Because some days he'd come in and he would sit there, and his sweat, he would just be sitting there doing nothing.
I was taking DMP, which definitely don't take that. It's not medical advice, but DMP is like clenbuterol times like 10. It's actually technically poison for your body. So clenbuterol can take, let's say your temperature is 98, it'll take it to 99. And what happens is you get hotter, you burn more calories. DMP will take it to like 102. So it feels like you have a fever. And so if you don't have constant air on you, you will sweat like crazy. So I would have a full fan blowing on me and I'd be like right under the AC and I would still just be like sweating profusely.
And he'd still sit there, just pouring sweat. Like there were droplets all over me. I'm like, dude, clean up my desk. And we would go work out in the morning. He'd only be eating this 1 can of tuna. So he would come in exhausted. And so he would lean back in this chair. He'd put up his feet and he would just go to sleep. And I just let him sleep because I knew he needed some rest. Sometimes he would come in and just lay down on the floor and I would take photos of him and post it on Facebook and call it my intern. And they're like, this is the worst. You should fire him. He's the worst intern ever. Not knowing I'm working literally for free. I'm not getting paid. Right. And then he turns out to be, one of the most successful internet coaches ever. A couple of things that I noticed about Tanner is that number one, he never got upset, annoyed, or angry when he didn't do something right and I would have to correct him. And I've had a lot of employees and, people don't want to take criticism. But Tanner was like completely open to whatever criticism. And I remember one time he did something in his book. His book was like over 100 pages, I think, and he had all these photos in it. And I used to tell him, do whatever it is you're doing, do it 5 times and then show me before you keep doing it.
So you don't mess up all of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But this time he didn't. He just went, I showed him how to do it, then he went and did it, and he did something really wrong to the point where anyways, I said, Tanner, you got to take all those out and replace them. You got to do this thing all over again. And I was expecting him to say some nasty things to me. And he says, okay, all right. He went right back to his desk.
I think I sighed too.
And he started working.
I think I was like, all right.
And he went back and did it. And man, that just showed me a lot of character. You cannot progress in your personal development or your business development if you can't be critical about yourself, when you can't be self-aware about your own weaknesses, and especially when other people give you advice or try to critique some of the things that you're doing. When you can be open and humble about all that stuff, you can progress 10 times faster than if you would just, your pride would get in the way. And Tanner, although he's an alpha male, I would consider very, very, very type A. He's also at the same time super open and humble to learning things. And those two things put together, you don't find them in many people. Either the person's just got a weak character or they're super type A. But you can't find a lot of humility in a really type A person. Anyways, Tanner had that. The second thing is he's super smart. So there was a thing that I always had in my office called FIO. And FIO stands for figure it out. And all my employees who ever worked for me, they know.
Yeah.
When I say FIO, it means instead of asking me, go figure it out on your own. Because if you go figure it out on your own, you're going to learn. If I have to spoon feed you with everything, you're not going to learn. When you go and figure it out on your own, you're going to learn a lot better.
And the one thing for that was interesting is, so I got in the habit when I started working with him, and keep in mind, guys, I wasn't being paid, and he basically, and I didn't understand this at the time, but I get why people don't mentor people, because he was getting the worst part of the deal. He wasn't making any money. He was showing me how to do my own thing, and then I would ask him questions and interrupt what he was doing. So at the time I was like, oh, that's like a great deal, but it's a terrible deal. But I would ask him a lot for help. I think I would just be like, hey, D, how do you do this? How do you do this? And finally, I think you were just like, dude, like, figure it out or like Google it. And then that actually was good, because I think employees do this a lot, where you'll go to your boss and ask for what to do because you know he'll tell you, but you become not as valuable to the company or to the employer because they're like, dude, like,
you're codependent.
Right. So when he started doing that, what I would do, and this is how I started learning, is I would hit up ClickFunnels typically, because it's usually a ClickFunnels issue. I'd send a support ticket, and then they'd have a live chat, and then I would Google it, and then what would happen is between this chat and Google, I would usually find the answer extremely quickly, and then I would just go from there versus asking you for help. So that was actually a lesson I learned from you that I try to get my team to do, because they do, Tanner, what about this? Tanner, I'm like, well, what do you think? What do you think you should do? Because it just makes you less valuable.
Okay, here's another really good reason to start your business when you've got nothing to lose. Because, you know, he didn't have a family to try and support at the time. He got up to $1 million in his business, and he was still living out of the little bedroom at his parents'
That was
home.
funny, wasn't it?
It was crazy. His work ethic was off the charts. Two things. He has a great work ethic, and he's very, very focused. So, like, he didn't get on YouTube, he didn't get on Facebook or any of that stuff when he was working. Now, when we were in the gym working out, he couldn't get off the dang phone. I almost slapped it out of his hand a few times while we were lifting.
Yeah.
But when he was working, he was super, super, super focused. So he would get stuff done really fast. So if he did make an error, he did it really fast, and we can get to what was the right way to do it. Where I was going with this is that he was willing to take big risks. And that's the good thing about starting your business when you have nothing to lose, because when you take a big risk, well, you know, you go back to where you were, and it's no big deal, right? If you were poor before and you take a risk, then you're poor again. You're not sacrificing your family or anything like that. So he would, his big breakthrough, actually, I never did high ticket coaching, right? So there's a good lesson, you know, when you get coached by someone, make sure you get coached by someone who's already doing the things that you want to do. Back in that era, most of the fitness guys.
This is like 7-8 years ago, guys, by the way. So this was like 2015, 16, maybe in there?
Yeah. I mean, getting paid $3,500 for an online coaching program for 3 or 4 months was unheard of.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even know, that was a total revelation to me that you could actually ask for $3,500.
Well, tell them what you taught me how to build. Like, talk about like what
Well, yeah, we started working on an info product business so that he would be able to offset his advertising. That's really what we were creating, a lead funnel, a lead generation funnel, so he could then upsell them in to a coaching program.
So lower price, guys, for those of you listening, lower price program. So say it's a $47 program, and then you sell something for $150, and then so it's an ascension funnel, which can work, but usually you need a lot of experience and a lot of money. But the one thing that you really don't get credit for that helped me is I didn't make any money doing this because I really didn't have any money to spend, which was the problem. But I learned how to create products and build funnels and do emails, and that's like the main thing I learned from him. So when I did figure out high ticket, I had all this operational value that like most people don't have from what I've seen. Like most people have no idea about the operational side of a business, even like VC.
Yeah, and see, the problem with that is then they have enough money to go pay somebody else to do it. There's a problem with that. Okay, you should outsource, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But when you outsource something you've never done, when it starts getting messed up, you don't even know that it's messed up.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the gym one day talking to Tanner. I said, Tanner, you need to do this stuff on your own. We were specifically talking about advertising at the time, Facebook advertising. Like, he wanted to hire someone. I'm like, dude, figure it out on your own. Because when you figure it out on your own and then you hire an ad guy, you can tell them, you know what's going wrong. You can help them troubleshoot. You can identify the problems. A lot of people have problems in their advertising because they never done advertising. They don't really even know. And they don't know how to fix it. And so he figured it out on his own. He's a good FIOer. He figured it out on his own. But the big breakthrough came for him. It was when he started advertising and generating leads, and he would send them straight to a chat bot.
He says chat bot, it would activate Facebook Messenger, Instagram DM, stuff like that. Yeah.
And that's not something really a whole lot of people were talking about at that time.
At all. It was the webinar funnel. It was just run a webinar.
Yeah, it was just pure webinar funnel. And now a lot of people, they just send them straight to Messenger and they have conversations and they don't even do the webinar.
Or like a basic DSL.
But Tanner, I think at the time, he's the one who really popularized doing messenger sales, messenger follow-up, setting up appointments for phone calls, sales calls and stuff. He's the one who really popularized that at the time because he went full bore because not many other people were doing it.
Yeah.
That was the leverage point that created the
Watch it.
That was the leverage point that created the success for him. And so, when something is successful for you, a lot of people will get tired of it and they'll move away. But he leaned into that in a big way. And then other people started kind of mimicking that, which naturally happens, and it's okay.
You had about 2-year run window. So for 2 years, we destroyed the market, and then I'd say it started tapering out. Yeah, about 2 years.
And how many people actually bought your conversion conversations? He eventually came out with a $200 product that showed you how to do follow-up through messengers.
Yeah.
And
we've had tons. I mean, we've had 30,000 clients, and I think at least like 15,000.
Big name people were buying this.
Yeah.
He would show me, he said, look who just bought it today. These are people that I knew that were already had big companies.
Yeah.
And so that's an important lesson, get something unique that you do and then lean into that. And he was really good at doing that.
Why did you even agree to mentor me? Do you remember? I remember. The reason he started mentoring me is I came back and I kind of had a falling out with my parents, and we went to the same church and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of feel bad. I'll send this in my videos. I don't know if you ever see them, but he came to me and he's like, hey, Tanner, look, what do you want to do? And it was a lunch. We had that lunch. It was lunch at Subway or something. And he's like, you should start a business. I'm like, dude, I have no idea how to start a business. I don't even know how this business makes money. He's like, well, why'd you want to be an engineer? I'm like, oh, it makes a lot of money. He's like, how much is a lot to you? I was like, I don't know. He's like, 100 grand's good, right? He's like, I mean, that's not that much. And I said, well, what else can I do? He said, start a business. And I said, well, I don't know what to do. And he said, well, look, if you go back to church, I'll bring you to my office and I'll teach you, but you got to go to church. Remember, dude?
That's right.
And I'll be honest, I still, to this day, I feel guilty because that went on for maybe a couple months and then I stopped going and then he kept helping me. But he probably could have just been like, F you.
I should have never even made that deal. That was stupid.
But that was the deal he made and he started helping me. And then I stopped going and he helped me for the next year and a half before I went off and started doing door-to-door sales. But it was kind of like the infrastructure of...
Yeah, but here is something interesting is that he never made any money in my office. He made trinkets of money. So what did he do? He moved up to Utah and he became a server. I mean, basically he got
it was Olive Garden, breadsticks every day.
$10 an hour plus tip job.
Yeah.
He was
15 an hour is what I would make.
He was willing to do what it took. And the job had the hours that allowed him to A, work out, and B, continue to try and pursue doing coaching.
Do you remember how many times I called you almost quit? 5 times at least. Over the 2 years, I would call him and I'd say, hey dude, I just think I should go back to school. I live in a crappy apartment. My car sucks. Girls don't I don't want to go on dates with girls because I have no money. I'm not making money. And he would just always be the only person on earth, literally, who would tell me to keep going. My dad's like, yeah, you probably should go back to school. My mom, Gentry, was a shithead at the time. And he'd be like, hey, dude, how's your business going? And he knew it wasn't going very well, but he actually kept me in the game, which was crazy because that also helped because, again, if I had quit and I went and I've become an engineer, the amount of money I would have made now, it'd be nothing. I mean, it'd have been nothing.
What you make in a month is what you would have made in a year.
Not even. I mean, way less. Like,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's another important principle there, is that when you're starting out in business, there's this thing called equity. And equity, I'm not talking about ownership in a business. Yeah. I'm talking about the intellectual capital that you create. I'm talking about your reputation. I'm talking about your customer base. I'm talking about your own development and your own skills. And every single month you can stay in business, your equity increases. And so you might not be making money, but your equity is still increasing until eventually the law of sowing and reaping, which the law of sowing and reaping is in every part of our lives. If you sow enough, eventually you'll harvest. And that's what happened for him. He went and took some really crappy jobs so that he could continue creating equity. And it was slow and it was hard. And then he talked to some other people. They got him excited about selling door to door.
Oh gosh.
So he went down to Alabama.
Alabama.
And Alabama.
Hot as hell. It was like this.
Yeah.
Outside. It was so hot.
And he discovered something about himself that I don't think he even realized. He discovered that he could sell. And he could sell really, really well. And there's something about Tanner is that he has this confidence about himself that he can do anything, right? So when the person's closing the door, Tanner would put his foot in the door to stop the door and continue the sell. And anyways, within a matter of months, he was one of the top salesmen in the entire company. And at that time, you were selling security systems.
Yeah, that was the hardest thing I'd ever done, by the way. So just so you guys know, doing that was harder than building the company I have. It was that hard because you're out there between driving and the sale time, it's 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. It's hot as hell and everyone hates you. And if you got one sell a day, you're doing good. One sell, if you hit 100 doors, you got one person to say yes, and it was like $50 a month.
Right.
And I would call you, I remember, it was just miserable.
Right.
I did it for like 7 or 8 months. It was miserable.
Right.
Miserable. So
my
hard.
son has done it, so I know.
It's so hard. So hard.
In the marketing world, we revere door-to-door salespeople because we understand that is the hardest selling. You take a person who's never known you, who's never seen you, who doesn't trust you. In fact, he has a lot of distrust because you came to his door.
Without asking.
And you're trying to sell him a product that they weren't looking for. Within a matter of a half an hour to an hour, you go from that to having them sign a contract.
One story you guys won't even believe. I don't even know if I told you this. I was selling one day and I knocked, the door was open. So I love when people's doors are open because you can just walk in the house. You're like, oh, hey, like you're already in. Well, this door that was open in particular, I knock on the door and I'm kind of look around and this lady, she's probably had to be 300-400 pounds, was butt naked on the couch. So I go in and I have a trainer behind me. So the trainer, I was like, come out like this. He's like, what are you doing? Go, the door is open. I'm like, dude, I'm not going in there. And he can't see it. So I'm like, you do it. So he walks by me and he's like, what the hell? And then he's like, whoa, he's like, holy crap. And then what happens is there's a guy in the house. I don't know where he came from, but he starts running towards the door with a machete. And he's like, ah! And he starts screaming. And I'm like, we're about to die. And then he starts, somehow the trainer calms him down and they're both Tongan. And so they start like collaborating. But I'm just sitting there like, why am I here knocking on doors? That was probably the worst experience I ever had.
Yeah. Anyways, us marketers really revere door-to-door knockers because they learn some invaluable skills that translate very well to going online. And so anyways, he never gave up. That's the bottom line, is that Tanner never gave up on his vision of having a business online. He never gave up on his dream. Even though he was working and doing other jobs, he always had this one thought in his mind that he never gave up on, that he was going to start his own business. So he was searching online one time, and he found, he came across an ad of a guy who said, you know, make X amount of money in your fitness business.
Yeah.
And he did not have the money at the time. He didn't have all the money. He had some of the money. He didn't have all the money.
Yeah.
And this is, again, this goes back to this idea that it's good to start when you don't have much to lose. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that don't have much to lose that still won't start and still won't take the risk. Tanner was willing to pull out his credit card and put this $5,000 course on his credit card, money he did not have, because he knew that he needed to invest and get that information, whatever that information was, he felt was going to take him to the next step. And lo and behold, he took that course, and only a couple things in the course that he learned from it. He didn't even, and it wasn't even the whole course. It's just these couple of things. Yeah. He started to apply that with great force. Like, he took these few things and he tried to apply it with great force. And within the first week, he was making more money than he would have made it, you know, in months in some of these other jobs that he had. So he had a lot of courage and he had a lot of faith in himself. And in business, man, having self-confidence, the confidence in yourself to be able to know that you can do it, is a very big thing, because you won't find many people that will be in your corner. Mm-hmm. You have to go out and find those people that will be in your corner. Usually, like Tanner said, your families and friends that have never been in that world. Yeah. They will only teach you and tell you and advise you on the things that they know. Just like I couldn't advise them on high ticket stuff because I didn't know it.
And they're usually right. So the thing too is when people say don't start a business, the reason they say that is most people fail. But you only have to be right once to make it work, right? Or like if your parents say, hey, that's the wrong person to date, every person you date besides one you marry, right? And so I think they're doing it to protect you. But you can't let those downturns or those failures stop you from doing it, because you only have to be right once. That's the thing. You don't have to be right 10 out of 10 times. You only have to be right 1 out of 10 times. But a lot of people aren't willing to go through that.
But you got to hang in there long enough and be bold. You know, it is bold for someone who doesn't have a lot of money to put thousands of dollars on a credit card. Yeah. That is a bold move. And then he took that course and he applied it with great, great force. And that's what started him on his way. Once he started making a lot of money, then he could start investing. And here's another thing he did. And I remember working out with him, Jim. He started getting these clients for his fitness business. And I said, Tanner, make sure that you are documenting everything you're doing to getting clients. Because your next step, people are going to pay you a lot more to learn how you're getting clients for this particular type of business. And as it played out, not long afterwards, I mean, he at one point in time, he had his fitness business that was going, so he was doing weight loss coaching and stuff like that. And at the same time, he had other people that were asking him to coach them on how to get clients for their fitness business. So he kind of had these businesses going both at the same time, and still didn't have someone working for him yet. Yeah. Which is kind of crazy. He's running these two businesses that are both making a lot of money, and he's still his only employee. So if you were to look at Tanner's org chart, Tanner's in the middle, and there's probably about 40 things all around, and he was in charge and doing them all. Yeah. And you can only be so crazy to do that for so long. Eventually, he made his first hire, and from there, you know, you make enough money to be able to stair-step up. A business goes stair-step up. Yeah. It never goes like this. You have to make an investment and then put that investment in play, and then you'll see a return. Then you have to make another investment, put that investment into your business, then you'll see an uptick. And that's how businesses grow. So that's how he grew, little by little. He didn't. I think he's got a staff of 40 today, or 50.
It's like 100, close to 100.
Yeah, 100 people. Yeah. But you know, you don't start out like that. It's just like this. And then, now here he is. What do you do all day?
Just come hang out with you. Dude.
What do you do?
I don't do as much now. So the cool thing now is the business is set up that I can be as involved as I want, but so it also depends on what's going on if they really need me. But ultimately at this point, I'm mostly advising. And so I spend time with the C-suite, company culture, and then, that's it.
But here's another thing I wanted to tell you is that, when Tanner started out, he didn't know anything about managing a business.
No.
Nothing about managing
I didn't even know how Subway made money.
But now when you look at some of his posts, you can see that, his company, the name of his company is Elite CEOs, because he's an elite CEO. And so not only do you have to make investments in the business, is you have to make investments in yourself. You have to grow into the position to pull your business up.
Yeah.
So you yourself need to develop into the person that can bring your company up to the next level. And so he's doing that little by little. He's investing in the infrastructure of the business, but he's also has spent, I don't know. How much money do you think you have spent on coaching programs?
$2.5 million probably at this point. I just spent another $40,000 the last couple of days.
He's spent a ton of money. And you think, now he's got a lot of money, he can spend $40,000. Listen, when he was not making hardly any money, his first coaching program was $5,000.
I had $2,000 to my name.
That's like $100,000 for someone who's, got a job.
Yeah.
So he was investing in himself all the time. Because you have to think differently. You have to have different frames of reference when you're running a business. And in order to make the business grow, you got to think differently at every level. At one level, you're an operator to get you to here. Then the next level, you're a team builder to get you to here. Next level, now you got to worry about culture to get you to here. Then the next level, you're figuring out how to expand and develop leaders within his corporation.
Well, and something he said all the time too that I didn't realize is he used to say something. I remember that you would tell me that if you did something wrong, I had to tell you, and it was my fault or my job. Do you remember that? And I would disagree with you, and I'm like, that makes literally no sense. Right. But now that I have a team, it's true, because as like a CEO or an executive officer, you're so busy doing stuff that you need your team to be, hey, I need this from you. Get it to me tomorrow. And if they don't, they have to come back to you. So there's, to his point, you have to become a new person to get your team to a level, because your company is a reflection of your team. And sometimes it's fun when you're winning, but when you're losing, it sucks, because you're looking in the mirror and going, my team is not performing. But the irony is either the person who's not performing you hired, or you hired the person who hired them. So it's still your fault. And that's what's probably the most humbling thing about running a business, is you realize that there's moments where you'll freak out, but then once you calm down, you have to go, it's my fault again. And that's probably I think that's the hardest part about running a business.
Well, as business leaders, we always want to blame it on somebody else. We want to blame it on the employees, right? The employees screwed up this, employee screwed up that. But usually, always, it's the system's fault.
Yeah.
And who is the creator of the system?
Yeah.
He's the creator of the system. So you got to look in the mirror. When you have problems in your business, you got to look at the systems that you have put in place to make them successful. If that person isn't qualified or skilled at doing a certain thing, well, you can't blame it on them that they're not qualified, or even if they made a mistake. Did you put a system in place to check to make sure that those mistakes were being minimized? Or did you put a system in place where they get indoctrinated very quickly and trained up to skills, and they have a mentor to make sure that they're not making mistakes in the beginning? Always point your finger at the system before you point your finger at your employees, because it's almost always the system's problem. And who is a developer of the system? You're the developer of the system. Yeah. And that's why taking ownership, I coach men in marriage, and my number one rule for husbands is ownership. Ownership, ownership, ownership. And ownership is being able to look in the mirror, being self-aware of your flaws and weaknesses, and own up to them. And owning up is not just saying, yeah, it's on me, but it's about creating a plan for that mistake not to happen again. It's about saying, I'm responsible for that mistake, but here's a plan so that mistake doesn't happen again. And if you keep doing that, the mistakes start going down and performance starts going up. I don't know about Tanner's life today, but at that time he was not living a balanced life whatsoever. He ate, slept, and drank business. It's like all he wanted to do is talk about business. At that time, I was in my 50s.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've got a life, and so I didn't want to just talk about business, because all he would do is talk about his business. And I remember one time telling him, Tanner, if all you're going to do, we were working out. We worked out every single day together for a long time. And he would either be on his phone or talking about his business. And I'm like, I am so sick of this. Tanner, if you're going to keep talking about your business, dude, we can't work out together. We got to talk about other stuff, man, because you are too focused.
Well, I was also like I also didn't ask you much about your life, because I think I was so just like, I was like making money, and it was so new, and I was so excited. I was just so
super excited.
So sometimes you're not aware of like, hey, like, how's your day? How's your life going? And that was probably part of it too. Yeah.
I don't have any real words of advice for Tanner, because he's already doing it. Okay. Again, I'll go back to this thing. Number one thing for a man is ownership. And in order to have ownership, you have to be self-aware of your flaws and weaknesses. And one of the gifts that Tanner's always had is he can see his flaws and weaknesses eventually. And he doesn't just look at his flaws and weaknesses and go, oh, I got these flaws and weaknesses. He tries to invest his time and energy and finances into improving himself. And so you will probably see online that he's doing all kinds of things, even weird stuff that I think is totally weird. He loves, but I think it's totally weird. But he's trying to find answers for himself and continually develop as a person. And I always say the first type is the one that doesn't know what he's doing wrong, so he never feels bad about it, so he never tries to fix it. And so he just, he continues having the problem. And the second type of man is someone who's recognized he's doing something wrong, but he didn't feel any bad about it. And so he doesn't try and fix it, so he continues to have that problem. The third type of man is someone who knows what he's doing wrong, he identifies it, he feels bad enough about it. And this is the thing, sometimes people got to go rock bottom before they actually make a change in it. That's what happened to me. When I was 17, I finally got arrested in high school and thrown in juvenile jail. I hit rock bottom, and that's what finally, it turned my life around. So I felt bad enough about it, or had a bad enough experience about it, that I finally started doing something about it, and then my life changed. Well, Tanner's always pretty much known what his flaws were, what his weaknesses were. And so he's always been working on them. And you will see a lot of his posts are on his own personal development. He doesn't just preach it to you. He tells you about his experiences, and he's probably the most vulnerable influencer that I know, that I've seen online.
Thing too is a lot of people, they have the same problems, they just don't talk about it. So like one in particular I'm going through right now is a lot of successful men who have a lot of money or clout, they have a lot of opportunity with women, and I know it's very obvious it's around, but not a lot of guys talk about it for, they have wives or girlfriends or whatever, and I just could never get anyone to tell me, for obvious reasons, hey, can you tell me about your personal relationship with, it doesn't work. So yeah, I don't know. I think
I think you have a unique problem.
Yeah.
So when Tanner was broke, and I mean, he was really, really broke. He had bucks to his name. He drove around this old Mazda. It was this beat up old Mazda, and he really didn't have a life. But it was kind of crazy. He would be on these dating sites or something, and some of the young ladies that would hit him up and want to go on a date with him were just like striking. That's all I'll say. They were striking. So even when he didn't have nothing, so he didn't have that problem. His problem is too many. Not a lot of men experience that problem.
Yeah, that's true. Well, D, thanks.
That's not a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing. It could be worse. Well, D, thanks for doing the interview. Again, follow David for anything really on marriage and relationships. He's going really deep down that rabbit hole, and I can tell you he's one of the few people I know that has a very good marriage. How long have you been married, D?
33 years.
33 years. So definitely somebody you can look up to in that aspect. So thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next one.
Right on.